Another prime, not my favorite grind or farm, but it's gonna happen eventually again and again, so best get used to it. Anyway, what did I get? So, for Lavo, I didn't farm a single relic for him. None. What I did was, as always, open syndicate packs. Here's the list, and presented a bit more neatly this time around. Then, I started by opening the relics that I got from them, and hey, that's me getting Lavos Prime in under an hour. If not... I have everything of Lavos. I didn't even need to get a Axie F3. I just don't think you finished Lavos for me. That's GG, homie. GG's. Holy that's going in the video. What the fuck? Huh. So I got very lucky, which is not going to be a trend. Anyway, opening the Lith L5, I got one Zylock receiver, and a random got his systems, so plus 10. Opening the Meso A8, I got one Bursting receiver, and then his Neuroptics. I only opened one Neo X1 and got his chassis, and when opening the Axie relics for the dual Zoren handle, I believe someone just got one of his blueprints. All of this in under an hour. So, S tier for me specifically. Lavos himself isn't quite S tier. I used to write Lavos off as being straight F tier, but after using him again, he's not that bad. I like him now, but let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Cooldowns. Truly, they aren't that bad at all. His cooldowns were his downfall. However, they still sort of are. Thing is, they're just not bad. Look at the gameplay in the background. I'm still able to use his abilities quite frequently, including that his 3 lowers the cooldown of all of them, but it's still not better than just using a frame that can spam abilities. But if we leave that out of the equation, Lavos does a decently cool thing. He can combine the elements of his abilities to make one of his abilities do Toxin and Cold, or Toxin and Blast, so on and so forth for every single ability. It's cool, and leaving a trail of Blast or Viral or Magnetic Crystals on the ground is awesome, but they last a very small amount of time. Just build duration, you say? But here's the thing. Since his abilities are on a cooldown, you instinctively want to be using it over and over and over again as soon as they come back up. So you want to build efficiency, but that doesn't really do anything except for how many seconds the 3 reduces every ability by. But it also doesn't last a while, and also doesn't reduce its own cooldown because it's on a timer. So, you have to build duration and efficiency right off the bat, making the ult to me useless because it's already on a 30-second cooldown and it just does damage in 6 directions that may or may not hit the enemy because it's in a star formation for a very short amount of time. But you also can't really subsume over it, because you might need fire for gas, radiation, blast, or just applying fire in general, which to me, using the fire on the 2 is really good. So his builds are probably really weird, on top of since his abilities are on a cooldown, but you want enemies to take them off cooldown with his 3 or his augment for his 1, which more on that in a second. So you don't necessarily want to kill with his abilities, but just apply statuses for a while, but they last for a short amount of time, so you use your galvanized gun for 2 seconds before needing to use the abilities again to prime then, and more. Yeah, I think you get my point, or at least understand what I'm trying to say, because I just think his gameplay loop is a little frustrating. His augments are cool, however. I like them, but the Ophidian Aspect one should just be on the ability already, and the second one seems kinda nutty. Regardless, I think Lavos goes right at the end of B tier and the beginning of C tier, right in the middle. I think he needs too much investment to get where others don't need as much, but he's also not ineffective if you don't build into him too much. But hey, as always, I could be wrong. This is the potential. This is the potential that I see, and someone, maybe a certain Lavos made, could be the insight that I need. For the Cedo, I wasn't so lucky. After opening all the relics I got from the Syndicate packs, I didn't get a single piece. So, for the 4th time, Hepit for Lith relics, for Neo relics, and Apollo for Axie relics. Didn't need Olympus because the Cedo doesn't have any Meso relics. Therefore, starting with Hepit, I spent 1 hour, 22 minutes getting 12 N16s, 7 S16s, 5 L5s, 5 Q1s, 5 W4s, 2 G13s, 1 Aya, and 4 A7s. The mission turned into an Exterminate twice, so plus 10. For I spent 5 hours, 31 minutes, and 45 seconds in there, getting 18 T9s, and at about 6 is when I stopped needing them, so I'm not counting all 18 towards exercising. 16 W2s, 15 D9s, and same with this one, only needing 6. 13 G8s, 10 X1s, 9 A13s, and finally 8 C6s. Here's also something else funny. The longest I went without getting one C6 was an hour and 20 minutes. It was not fun. For the final mission on Apollo, I spent only 13 minutes on it, getting a Z2, a F3, a P8, and one M6. Now opening the relics, starting with the Lith A17, I got 2 Sevagoth systems, 1 Nautilus Carapace, 1 Fulman Blueprint, and 1 Cedo stock. 2 randoms had the relic, so plus 10. Opening the Neo C6, I got 3 double formos, 2 somethings that I don't remember, 2 Proteo blueprints, 1 Bronco barrel, and 1 Cedo blueprint. Again, 2 randoms had the relic, so plus 10. Opening the Neo T9, I got 2 formas, 2 Sevagoth Neuroptics, and 1 Cedo barrel. Again, 1 random had the relic, so plus 5. Finally, with the Axie M6, I got 1 Burston blueprint, 1 Masseter blade, 1 Zaku system, 1 Wisp Neuroptic, and 1 Cedo receiver. This one sucked, but at least it wasn't as terrible as the Okina Prime, so C tier. What else starts with a C? The Cedo, and it sure is not a C tier gun. The Cedo is kinda nuts, and I'll start by saying it has innate galvanized with a higher percentage and not limited to 1 status effect. At least I hope that's how it is, because that's how it reads, and if so, it's nuts. Also meaning you don't need to put Galvanized Savvy on it, but it could benefit more from it, question mark? I don't know. It has a 24% crit chance, 2.4 crit multiplier, and a very low status chance. So you want to pair it with a primer to maximize damage, or some weird build that lets shotguns just apply some stupid amount of status effects. It also has an alt-fired glaive that I don't personally necessarily care about, because to me it's a novelty, but it's probably busted. The Cedo to me looks like it has great potential. S tier. I didn't need to farm for any relic, so right on to opening them. For the Lith S16, I got 1 Master handle and a random got the blueprint, so plus 10. Opening the Neo D9, I got 1 Perish string, 1 Lex receiver, and 2 dual Zoren blades. Last relic of the video being Axie P8. I got 1 double forma, something I don't remember, and 2 dual Zoren handles. Not bad. A tier. Now, its potential is very much the literal definition of mid. I don't know what to say about this thing. Besides, it's just a critical dual sword option. It just feels like one of those movies you find in a bargain bin, thinking that it's gonna be bad because it's like $5. But it's in there, and you watch it, and it's not bad. You like it, but there's nothing really special about it. And then you move on. I mean, it looks cool, especially with the glowing element you put on it and the color, but at the same time, it also has pretty terrible starting polarities for a crit weapon. So that's just how the dual Zoren feels to me. C to B tier. Whoo boy, the Sporothrix. I was dreading this one. I was told, or at least told to expect a very terrible farm. And honestly, it's not that bad. To obtain the Sporothrix, you need to have access to the Deimos, the Cambion Drift, and the Vault bounties. Once you've completed 1 Vault bounty, Mother offers an Arcana version of it. It's only accessible in the Cambion Drift, in free roam, by going to one of the Mother Flowers out there, but specifically this is the one I used because the other ones didn't have the bounty, even though I've done it at this one, but anyway. Then it proceeds to just being a bounty stage reward. However, with one special little caveat. You can only get 1 part per bounty rotation, besides the blueprint, which is always available. But still, the bounty rotations, as you may or may not know, last about 2 hours to 2.5 hours. So, for 2.5 hours, it'll be the receiver, then the stock, then the barrel. And if I'm being honest, that is the worst part about the farm. The only thing that comes close is a couple of the objectives themselves, because the drop rates are not bad. The blueprint drops from stage 1 of the bounty and onward. The parts drop from 2 and 3 onward with increasing percentages, starting at 4.69% for stages 2 and 3, then 3.75% on stage 4 of 4. But if you complete every bonus objective, which isn't hard by the way, then you have another chance at 7.5% as the bonus reward. And yes, there are things above it too at a higher percentage, but regardless, it's not terrible. And speaking of the objectives, they're pretty easy as well, besides 2 of them. Most of them are things you already do as bounty objectives anyway. Purifying an area to grab weird things, destroying tumors to get a cache, killing infested near a thing to spawn a thing, keeping an area above a certain control level. Easy. The 3 unique ones are closing 5 fissures, coating 15 infested in goo after killing 3 tumors, and finally, the worst one, protecting a juggernaut for like 5 minutes as it eats 3 things, walks around the whole tile set, then killing it. That one is the worst one and takes the most amount of time. Same with going back up and starting the bounty again, then going back down if there is no teleporty thing to bring you back up instantly. So they are objectives we already encounter regularly in Warframe. So how long did it take me? And what did I get? I already had the Sporothrix blueprint when I started farming. So, starting with the receiver, I got 3 Sporothrix blueprints, 2 residual Viremia, 2 Theorem Contagions, 1 residual Malador, 1 Meso G8, 1 Neo G8, 1 Necromech Hydraulics, 1 Orokin Ballistics Matrix, and 2 Sporothrix receivers in the same mission.
Incredible job.
Wait a minute there, hold on, I was joking.
For the stock, I got Theorem Demulcent 6 times, 4 Necromech Frictions, 3 Theorem Infections, 3 damaged Necromech Weapon Stocks, technically that means 6, but I'm just going to say I got it 3 times. 2 Theorem Contagions, 2 Necromech Furies, 1 Neo G8, 1 Orokin Animus Matrix, 1 Orokin Orientation Matrix, 1 Orokin Ballistics Matrix, and finally the Sporothrix stock, taking 1 hour, 19 minutes, 2 seconds. And guess what? We're not done, moving right on to the barrel, being the final item. Starting with 10 Residual Shocks, 3 Necromech Furies, 2 Residual Boils, 2 Theorem Contagions, 2 Sporothrix Blueprints, 2 Necromech Stretches, 2 Orokin Orientation Matrices, 1 Axii P9, 1 Orokin Animus Matrix, 1 Orokin Ballistics Matrix, 1 Necromech Streamline, and finally, the Sporothrix Barrel, taking 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 41 seconds. So it's not terrible, just above or just under an hour for each part. Luck may vary. The only annoying part is a couple of the objectives, i.e. the Juggernaut Escort, coating the infested with turquoise globs and killing them, and defend an area for some amount of time. Doing all of the bonus objectives are super easy, allowing you to have the best chance at the Sporothrix part. The only massive downside is that it is a bounty and on a rotation. So, for that and all of it combined, the Sporothrix is a C to B tier farm. That's also how I feel about the weapon, but just a little bit worse. Let's start with how the Sporothrix reads. This long-distance sniper rifle fires a razor-sharp virus-soaked barb that continues to attack its host before violently erupting in a spore-laden mist. Scoped headshots increase lethality. Which, yes, but not as effective as it's written to be. The continuous damage lasts for about 8 ticks, the explosion is very small, and it takes like a couple seconds to activate. And like, I get the point of the weapon. It's supposed to do continuous damage to one target and have some sort of AoE with a small explosion that spreads more status effects, but it doesn't really do anything in terms of damage unless you shoot a big amount of things into one dude, because the continuous damage is very small. I mean, it has a high status chance and applies viral with the barb's explosion, so galvanized maybe, but there's also a bunch of weapons that just outright do more in the primary slot, so D tier. Could be gimmicky fun, is what I would say if it didn't have a mod specific weapon that makes it way better. Volatile variant gives the Sporothrix punch through, going through 3 targets. The barbs instantly explode on each enemy, and on direct hits, the explosion gains 4 more meters. It also has 50% more status chance, making it a much better weapon in the long run. Thing is, do I count this? Because it's technically an augment, and not like the Prisma Grimlocks mod, where it only gets critical chance without a downside, but it also changes how the gun functions entirely. So, I don't know. With the mod, it's a B. Without it, it is a D. The Gemosi frame gun. But for real though, anything to do with Citrine besides her kit kinda blows. Mirror defense is a cool game mode, but the drop rates in the pity system kinda sucks. So what are they? The Steflos blueprint drops from the A rotation at a 10% chance twice. The rest of the parts drop from the B rotation at an 8% chance per part, totaling a 24% chance to roll a Steflos part in general. Which, cool. But like, that's a 24% chance to then have an 8% chance for a part you may or may not have. Or, you know, just getting a relic again. But hey, maybe that drop chance is actually really good. Well, I also say kind of, because before I even started the series, I farmed this mission a lot for Citrine, and she just did not want to drop whatsoever. And it also wasn't dropping the Steflos. I had at least 6 blueprints in one receiver by the time I got Citrine. I have no idea how much total time I spent, but it was a long time to where I had to pity 2 of Citrine's parts, the blueprint being one of the most expensive items for her, besides the Captura scene being at 1,000. The parts for the Steflos are cheaper, for sure, but still, it costs a lot for the amount we get. Like it was at the beginning of the pity system that they started to introduce, so sure, they're figuring out the prices, they're figuring out the farm, but it still sucks. It also doesn't help that the pricing is gimmicked as well, with the Chlorophyll needing more red/Rania crystals and the Steflos needing more blue/Belric crystals. You sort of get an even amount of crystals in the mission itself, but it's only around 65 to 70 per B rotation time. You can get around 85 to 90 once the C rotation hits. That's also with me trying to get every crystal as it spawns before they despawn after the 2.5 minutes of defending the defense point. That's also including the in-between when going from one defense point to another, which, oh boy, it's not your standard 5-minute thing. It's a 2.5 minute defense, then a 30-second in-between where you rush to get as many crystals as possible, then you defend for another 2.5 minutes, then the reward screen, then another 30 seconds to get back to the other side getting more crystals. So instead of 15 minutes, it's roughly 18.5 minutes per B rotation reward. But luckily, since I had the blueprint and the receiver, I only had to get 2 parts. I only spent 1 hour and 16 minutes, 6 seconds, getting 1 Neo P7, 1 Steflos receiver, 1 Neo L4, and 1 Steflos barrel, pitying the stock as I got 275 of each crystal. For my ranking, I'm ranking it more because of the time in the pity system. The drops aren't technically that bad, it's just the rotation it's on. You can get the crystals fairly fine at a good rate, and I don't know if playing multiplayer is easier. I generally play solo. So to me, it's going into C to low B tier for farming, as I was just lucky I had parts beforehand. The Steflos is a pretty fun gun to use, when the shot actually hits the target in front of you. But still, its gimmick is pretty cool, where it has infinite punch through but has a lower projectile lifespan, unless it hits a target that it extends up to 10 seconds. So if you're fighting waves and waves and waves of enemies, which is common in this game, it'll go through pretty much all of them. Citrine also enhances it since it's her weapon, giving it more projectile speed, but okay. Just don't expect it to do amazing single target damage, you'll still need a fair amount of shots to kill, but it's pretty neat regardless. It has innate heat and a decent status chance, so galvanized is probably the way to go in my opinion. Other than that, I think it's a pretty fun to use gun. It could be decent compared to other shotguns, potentially. B tier. And that's the end of the video. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching and say that the next one is our 10th video, episode, whatever you want to call it. And it's going to be Temple and the 4 Coda weapons. So, hope you stick around for that. And, well, for the future. That'll be it. I really got nothing else to say except for thank you. As always, like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want, and take care of yourself.